There's a power within you that can lift your life to its highest level. It can change illness into health. It can bring peace amidst turmoil. It can bring success out of failure and victory out of defeat. It can bring companionship and happiness out of loneliness. It responds to you, for this is the power that dwells within you, and so it is. Amen. Now, as we go through that affirmation of there's a power within you, we know that we can read in the Scriptures that I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. Through Christ, which strengthens me. So therefore, I know that this power that's within me is the Christ within me. It is that presence of God, that intelligence of God, that Spirit of God, the power of God that moves through me as I have faith and belief, and as I recognize and identify that that's what this power and this presence is. Each and every one of us have that opportunity every day to experience this power and this presence, but we must consciously recognize it. We must consciously know that it's present in our life. We must consciously believe and accept that there's something within us that's greater than anything that we may see, something greater than whatever it is that we're going through, something greater than what the world is telling us about ourselves. So we must know the truth about ourselves. We must know, as Jesus did, as the Buddha did, as Krishna did, as Isaiah did, as Job did, as Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John did, that there is a power greater than us that's greater than that which is in the world. When we connect with it, recognize it, identify with it, declare that it's so, and accept it as the truth for us, as we accept from the book of Genesis that we are created in the image and the likeness of God. And that image and that likeness is but a finite attribute of the infinite, the finite attribute of the infinite, or a fragment, that we might say, of the whole. So there's a holiness within us, but it's a fragment of the wholeness of God, the wholeness of God. So we must recognize that, realize that, and know within our heart, our mind, and our soul that it is the absolute truth for us. So once again, I want to thank you for joining me today for The Way to a Wonderful Life. I am Reverend Dr. Henry Lee Bates. I'm coming to you live from Palm Springs, California. This program is not pre-recorded. It is not edited. It is live. I'm teaching the evolutionary science of mind, which is the philosophy of the mastermind Jesus. And so we know and we understand that as we follow Jesus, sometimes when we follow Jesus, we go against religion, we go against the world, because Jesus was teaching us an absolute truth in the simplest of ways, but we must understand what he was teaching us. You know, the Bible has been interpreted so many different ways, and there's a difference between a translation and an interpretation. And we know that in the language of Jesus, in the Aramaic, there are words that don't even translate into the English. So we know that there's interpretation. So we're going to get back and realize within ourselves how much of that interpretation we're to cast off and how much of it we're to hold as the truth, because the radical Jesus was giving us a truth that can set us free. He said, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free, but it won't set you free if you don't know it. So we must know it. We must know it and be willing to seek it. And when we seek it, we will find it. When we claim the truth within our consciousness, the truth about whatever it is that's going on in our life, we shall experience it. Now, for more information about this ministry, you can visit www.revbates.tv or www.revbatesontheradio.org, and you can find audio videos of my radio messages on youtube.com by just searching for Reverend Henry Bates. That's B-A-T-E-S, and you can also find me by searching on MSN, Yahoo, Bing, and Google by just searching for Reverend Henry Bates, and you will find everything you want to find out about this ministry. You can also write to me at P.O. Box 1173. That's P.O. Box 1173, Palm Springs, California, 92263. Once again, that's P.O. Box 1173, Palm Springs, California, 92263. And you can call me in the Los Angeles area at 476-0088, or in Palm Springs at 760-778-5677. Once again, this is The Way to a Wonderful Life, coming to you live from Palm Springs, California, and I am Reverend Dr. Henry Bates, teaching the evolutionary science of mind, the philosophy of the mastermind Jesus. And as I stated before, this program is not pre-recorded, nor is it edited. It is live. So let's move on to our Way to a Wonderful Life message for today, which is the third. It's the final installment of our three messages that are three lessons in a series of Jesus series, I call it. So this one is titled Jesus, Get the Consciousness. Jesus, Get the Consciousness. And we go back to the book of Luke, chapter 11, 9 through 10 from the Holy Bible, and we always use the King James Version because when we talk about those interpretations and those translations, we know that the King James Version is the closest to the actual message that the people in the Bible were trying to give us. So we read, and I say unto you, ask, and we have learned in our previous lessons that means to claim, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. And as we learn, whatever we are seeking is seeking us, but we must find it in our mind first. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you, and that is our lesson for today. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asks receives, and he that seeks finds, and to him that knocks it shall be opened. It shall be opened. So let's go to some beautiful words here from the mystical Joseph Murphy from his classic book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. And we know that subconscious mind is just that deeper level of mind that within each and every one of us where we have registered our beliefs, we've registered our measure of faith, we've registered what we believe in and what we have faith in, and so we go to these words and we understand them. Decide what belief is, Dr. Murphy writes. Decide what belief is. Know that belief is a thought in your mind and that what you think, you create. Apply the power of prayer therapy in your life. Apply the power of prayer therapy in your life. Choose a certain plan, idea, or mental picture. Unite mentally and emotionally with that idea. As you remain faithful to your mental attitude, your prayer will be answered. Always remember, if you really want the power to heal, you can have it through faith, which means a knowledge of the working of your conscious and subconscious mind. Faith comes with understanding. Faith comes with understanding, and that's from Dr. Joseph Murphy and his classic book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. So we know that when Dr. Murphy writes, know that belief is a thought in your mind and that what you think you create, we know that he's just telling us the same thing that the radical Jesus was saying when he said, it is done unto you as you believe. As we believe in God and as we believe in the good and as we believe in ourselves, we shall find ourselves transcending anything that seeks to oppose our good. But as we believe, as the world believes, that there's two powers, that there's a power of good and there's a power of evil, there's a devil and a God, and there's something to oppose us, then we fall into the same ditch that the world falls into. As Jesus said, the blind lead the blind, and they'll all end up in a ditch. So we know we don't want to believe in the blindness of duality. We want to believe that in that allness of God, and I go back to this almost in every message that I give, and I go back to that book of Isaiah because I want to impress this on our mind in the most firm way that we can all believe this and we can remain faithful to this and be steadfast and immovable in this faith. We shall see wonderful things happen to us when we believe that I am the Lord. Besides me, there is none other. Besides me, there is no thing, nothingness. So we have nothing to fear but the thought of fear. We have nothing to fear but the false concept of something outside of the realm of God that has a power over us. There is no power. There is no power but God. There is no presence but this presence of the good, this presence of God. There is no intelligence but this one intelligence that's seeking to express itself in and through all things, including you and me, So in this final installment of our Jesus series, and this is one in which we must discover within ourselves that which that which Jesus discovered not only for himself but for all of us, and that is that consciousness is everything. Consciousness is everything. Whatever we have, whatever we are doing, whatever we are being is a reflection of our consciousness of these things. And that is the good news. That is the good news, because we know that if we are to have more, we know it is within us. It is within us to have it. It is within us to have it. Jesus said, "No, and it shall be opened unto you. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you." Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. And so we know in this, he's telling us to knock on the door of our consciousness and open our mind to the more abundant life, the more abundant life. We know that. We believe that. We see that in our mind. We see that in our heart. We see that in our soul, that there's always this desire for more, for a greater expansion and increase of the good and that we are experiencing. Now, the great Dr. Murphy tells us to unite mentally and emotionally with what we want. And then in this, he's telling us to not only identify what we want, not only to identify with what we want, but to have a faith and a belief that we can have it as we identify with it, It's not enough to say there's plenty for everyone, or that there's a great abundance in the world. As Jesus said, all that the Father hath is mine, but we must claim that portion of that allness that is ours to experience. We're not here to experience all that the Father hath. We'd have to be on this planet 1,000,000 years, maybe 1,000,000,000. But we do know this, that we can experience that part of that allness that we can claim as ours, because God has prepared it for us. And if we feel that desire in our heart to have it, and it takes nothing away from anyone else and diminishes no one else in any way, shape, or form, it is ours to experience. It is ours to experience. So Dr. Murphy says, unite mentally and emotionally with what we want. And in this, he is telling us to not only identify what we want, but to identify with it. For it is not enough to know there's a greater thing possible, but we must believe and have faith that we are part of it, part of its identity in our mind. In everything we are experiencing, there is a fragment of that something so much more. It is up to us to identify with that so much more in our consciousness. Do we have a car that satisfies our need for transportation but does not satisfy our desire for something of quality workmanship and beauty? Or is it a better house, a better job, or greater financial ease that we desire to experience? Then we must begin to identify or knock on the door of our consciousness in order to demonstrate that finer automobile, that finer house, that finer job, or that greater financial ease as ours. If we really want the power to heal, as Dr. Murphy tells us, we have it through faith. If we really want the power to heal, as Dr. Murphy tells us, we can have it through faith. And in this context, heal means to heal not only that of a physical or emotional dis-ease, but also that which reflects lack and limitation. That which reflects lack and limitation. And as we gain knowledge of the attributes of spirit, we realize that we must get into the spirit of the thing. We must get into the spirit of the thing if we are to expect the law of God, which is a law of correspondence, to work through us. The Mastermind Jesus knew that this is possible, for we each have within us an infinite capacity for joy, an infinite capacity for happiness, an infinite capacity for harmony, and an infinite capacity to realize and be aware of the beauty within us and the beauty within the world. There is a great joy that springs to life within us as we realize that our desires are God's desires for us. There's a great joy that springs to life within us as we realize that our desires are God's desires for us. And we know this as we identify first with God and then with the thing in which we identify ourselves with. We know that first we identify with God, and then we identify ourselves with the thing that we seek to experience. We see ourselves in it. We see ourselves having it. We see ourselves doing it, and we see ourselves being it. Now, many of us have had experiences in life that disturb our mind, and so many times people hold on to these things. So many people hold on to these things. Now, both religious and secular ideas have been inflicted upon us that require us to heal them in order to have that love of God and that love of life that provides for us a wonderful life right here where we are, right here where we are. Now, many people will tell me, oh, you're way too hard on religion. You're way too hard on religion, Rev Bates. But I'm going to tell you, religion is one of those culprits in the collective consciousness in the world in which we live that destroy that image and likeness of God within us to believe and accept that there's something within us that's greater. It doesn't destroy that image and likeness of God. I should take that back. That destroys our recognition, that separates us from God, separates us from the good, that separates us from the belief that all that God is good and all that God has for us is good. You know, I just read an article in the Associated Press on the Yahoo News that says officials, California parents asked man to beat their child, and it says an Irvine couple who suspected their 15-year-old son was smoking relied on someone in their church who violently disciplines children, and they handed over their son to this man, and he beat this boy with a metal pipe. He beat him with a metal pipe. So the boy goes to school, and people see all the bruises and contusions on his body, and they call the police. Now, this is a church. This is a church where people believe that you can turn your child over to someone, and they can beat them because of some incidental thing that the child has done that's wrong. And instead of teaching that we all make mistakes, that we all create our own SIN, our self-inflicted nonsense, but we can correct it, they go and they beat the child. And I'm sure at that humiliating moment that others saw the damage that this man had done to this boy's body, this child was probably humiliated that his classmates and his school had found this out. And then to believe that the parents turned this child over to this man. Now, the police arrested the man that beat the child, but I think they probably should have arrested the people, the parents that turned them over to the child. We must recognize and we must know that everything is God. All is God and all is good, and our children are not ours. They are God's. They are God's. They are God's, and they are of God. So we must recognize that when we look at these things that take place in our life. Now, this child, this young man, I'm sure he's not going to have a very good feeling about God, about church, about Jesus, about anything that's part of this incident. And if he grows up to be one of those people running down Hollywood Boulevard shooting at people, or he ends up in some college killing somebody, then we know where it came from. We know that he wasn't able to heal that thing that the world has planted within him to heal, that this man who beat him with a metal pipe planted within his mind, within his consciousness, and these parents who turned him over to this sadistic person and this church that supports this type of thing. God bless them, but they're an abomination. We know that this has to be healed. This has to be healed. So we know that these are the things that the world has given us, and maybe the world hasn't given us anything quite as horrible or horrendous as this experience that this young man has gone through. But we do know and we do accept that there are things in our life that we must heal. There are things that we must heal. So both religious and secular ideas have been inflicted upon us that require us to heal them in order to have that love of God and that love of life that provides for us a wonderful life right here where we are. Yet we cannot heal anything by focusing on that which disturbed us or that or what we have experienced in the past. True healing is revealing. True healing is revealing that something greater that has always been with us, untouched by the experiences and the false ideas that were either inflicted upon us or accepted by us, which is why Jesus understood that in the present moment we can touch on this something greater. We can touch on this something greater in our mind by recognizing it and identifying with it, We must understand these profound words of Jesus, knock and it shall be opened unto you. To him that knocks, it shall be opened. And by knock, Jesus meant demand. And so we must make a demand on our consciousness to transcend the conditions and the circumstances, transcend the past that we have found ourselves in, the situations we found ourselves in. In order to make the demand, we must have a conviction of faith. We establish this conviction and faith and embody in consciousness the thing we desire with spiritual prayer. Dr. Murphy calls it prayer therapy, and actually that's kind of a good word because that young man who was beat with that metal pipe, and that beating was supported by his church and by his parents, he's going to require a lot of prayer therapy to come back to the holiness in his mind that he's a part of God and God is a part of him, and that all things in God are good and very good. So we know that prayer therapy, that spiritual prayer, is going to be absolutely necessary for him to heal this experience. We establish this conviction and faith and embody in consciousness the thing we desire with spiritual prayer. We recognize the action of divine law. We identify with it, and we align our mind with it. We declare the results that we seek to experience, and then we accept it in our mind as ours and continue to believe that it is ours. So this is so important. I'm going to go over this again. We must understand these profound words of Jesus, knock and it shall be opened unto you. That means that new experience, that new thing that makes us forget all the stuff that we've experienced in the world, that makes us forget all the times we've been rejected or disappointed or we felt like somehow we were inferior to others in the world, all that stuff that lets us forgive in our hearts for all those things that people have seemingly done to us. And we know that, as Jesus said, they know not what they do. These parents in this article about this young man beaten with a metal pipe, he didn't know what he was doing. His church doesn't know what in heaven they're doing, and neither did this man who beat him with the pipe. They know not what they do. They don't have the consciousness of the love of Jesus. They don't have the consciousness of the love of God. They don't have the consciousness of the love of Buddha or Krishna. They don't have the consciousness of Isaiah or Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John to realize that this young man is a part of God, that it is God that moves through him. It is God that holds him in his loving embrace, and it's God that's protecting him and giving him that security because his soul is being untouched by all that they do. But this young man must use prayer therapy and spiritual prayer in order to arrive at that conclusion in his mind. And let's all pray today that he does so that he can realize something greater, realize a greater experience of God, a greater experience of love, and a greater experience in this world and what he has experienced, and heal those things that have happened to him. Remember, true healing is revealing that something greater, that God, that love of God that is always with us, untouched by the experiences and the false ideas that were either inflicted upon us or accepted by us, which is why Jesus understood that in the present moment we can touch on this something greater in our mind by recognizing it and identifying with it. We can see beyond the physical into the metaphysical, into the spiritual, if we close our eyes and we go within and we radiate that presence of God in our mind in a greater way and let that energy, that flow of the divine essence move through our heart, our mind, and our soul, and we shall be healed because we shall reveal that there's something greater, there's something more than anything that has ever happened to us, anything we've ever experienced, and that this loving presence, this healing presence of the divine is moving through us, as us, for us, as we recognize it, identify with it, declare it as the truth for us, and accept its presence, its power, and its intelligence as working in our mind, our individual mind, in its own right and perfect way and in its own right and perfect time. We establish this faith and conviction and embody in our consciousness the thing we desire with spiritual prayer. We recognize the action of divine law. We identify with it and align our mind with it. We declare the results that we seek to experience, and then we accept it in our mind as ours and continue to believe that it is ours. The love and law of God is ours to use, just as Jesus used it, just as Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John used it, just as Isaiah used it, as Job used it, as Ernest Holmes used it, as Joseph Murphy used it, as Norman Vincent Peale used it, and as Dr. Robert Schuller used it to turn a drive-in theater into the Crystal Cathedral. It is so universal that it is available to everyone. It is no respecter of persons and is not dependent on conditions. It is dependent only on our recognition and identification with it. We can read in the Scriptures, with all thy getting, get understanding. With all thy getting, get understanding. Let's begin to understand the universal principles taught by the radical Jesus and all the great teachers of spiritual principles that take us beyond religion, beyond politics, beyond the collective thought of the world, and not be distracted by that which will leave us wanting, and not be distracted by that which will leave us wanting. And let's go over these words one more time, because we realize that if we are going to benefit from sacred writings, we must stimulate our mind to believe them and to understand them. In the autobiography of a yogi, it is written, do not confuse understanding with a larger vocabulary. Sacred writings are beneficial in stimulating desire for inward realization if one stanza at a time is slowly assimilated. That means one statement of truth slowly assimilated in our consciousness. Continuous intellectual study results in vanity and the false satisfaction of an undigested knowledge. Continuous intellectual study results in vanity and the false satisfaction of an undigested knowledge. So we want to take each of these statements at a time and embody them, understand them, and then use them in our life in a greater way. So we go to the book of Luke one more time, chapter 11, 9 through 10, and this is the final of our 3-lesson series, Jesus series, that we're going to have. So let's pay attention to these words and take them into our mind and say, I am going to use these words. I'm going to use this profound truth that Jesus gave us. I'm going to use these words, and I'm going to see them up picture in my life in the most beautiful and wonderful way. So Jesus said that I say unto you, that's you and me, ask, that means claim, and it shall be given you. Seek, and you shall find, because as we seek, we are seeking that which is seeking us. That which I am seeking is seeking me. We must know that. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asks receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. So we must make a demand on our consciousness that we get the consciousness of health, of wholeness, of prosperity, of success, of loving companionship, of a divine consciousness and kindness within us that the whole world can feel, because that atmosphere of our thought, that we love everybody and adore some, that atmosphere of our thought that says, whenever I see anyone, I'm seeing the image and the likeness of God, that activity of our thought, when we believe that and we think that and we know that, gives us the consciousness for the abundant life, for the life abundant. And so it is. Amen. Once again, it's been my great pleasure to have you with me today, and I hope you join me for my next broadcast right here on KTYM AM 1460 radio and at www.ktym.com worldwide this coming Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. Pacific time, and I'll be back next Sunday morning, 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. And be sure and visit www.revbates.tv or www.revbatesontheradio.org for more information and to submit prayer requests, questions, or comments about this program. You can write to me at P.O. Box 1173. That's P.O. Box 1173, Palm Springs, California, 92263. That's Rev-Henry Bates, P.O. Box 1173, Palm Springs, California, 92263. And you can go to revbates.tv or revbatesontheradio.org, and you could submit prayer requests, questions, or comments about this program. And translations of my weekly messages are available in both Spanish, Italian, and English on revbates.tv, and you can also find me on YouTube with, excuse me, with audio videos of my messages in both English and Spanish, thanks to Raul Feliciano Sanchez of Houston, Texas. This program is an independent project of Rev Bates Ministries and is supported by your very generous donation. So I invite you to make a faith offering, a love offering, a tithe, a gift, or contribution, a donation to this ministry. And you can do that by going to revbatesontheradio.org or revbates.tv, and you can use your ATM card or your credit card to make that donation, or you can mail that donation, tithe, love offering, faith offering, or gift to Reverend Henry Bates, that's Bates, at P.O. Box 1173, P.O. Box 1173, Palm Springs, California, 92263. Once again, this has been The Way to a Wonderful Life, and I am Reverend Dr. Henry Lee Bates. I've been coming to you live from Palm Springs, California, right here at the Desert Cities Community Church, where every morning, Monday through Friday, I'm broadcasting live to Maryland, Delaware, and South Jersey on WKDI 840 AM radio at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and that's 6:30 a.m. on the West Coast. And I'm hoping and praying that broadcast will soon be on the internet so that each and every one of you can enjoy listening in. And if you know someone in Maryland, Delaware, or South Jersey, write to them, email them, call them, and tell them to tune in with Rev Bates on the radio, The Way to a Wonderful Life, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, WKDI AM 840 radio, Monday through Friday. Once again, this is Reverend Dr. Henry Lee Bates affirming that God is blessing us. God is blessing us right now, right where we are. And until next Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, keep the faith. Keep the faith with God. Keep the faith with the good. Keep the faith with yourself. Keep the faith with all things that you know are the absolute truth. Realize, as Jesus did, that as we follow him, that means as we do as he did, and we do as he believes, and we believe as he believed, that we will find ourselves, just as the mystical Ernest Holmes did, realizing that there's a greater truth for all of us than what we found in the world. There's a greater truth for all of us than what we found in religion or politics or in the world belief and duality. There's a greater truth that we can all experience as we take this greater truth within our mind and realize, as Jesus did, that I am one with the Father, that I am all that the Father hath is mine. And I can realize these things right now, right where I am. And so it is. Amen.